What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another FPL video on Fantasy Football Scout. We're going into game week 16. The game week 15 game week is still going on as I record this video, but a lot of people are using their wild card and there isn't too much time to use it, right? The game week 16 deadline is 1:30 on Monday in the afternoon. So you've got a few hours more to think about getting that game week 16 wild card locked in and ready to go for kind of not the rest of the season, but at least over the blank and double game week period. So in this video, I thought I'd give you my opinion on the top 5 picks if I was building a wildcard right now that I would almost certainly have in my team. Now, obviously, strategies come into it. Which chips are you playing in game week 18, 19, if any, triple captain, bench boost, free hit, or whatever it might be. But regardless of those chips, I don't see why I wouldn't have these players in my team. So we'll start off with a pretty obvious one, right? Mo Salah. I think he's in most people's teams right now. His effective ownership in game week 15 was crazy. He's the highest scoring player in FPL who also has a double game week. So the game week's not finished yet for 15, so Son could overtake him depending on what happens. But considering he's got West Brom, I'd be pretty confident that Salah will come out on top as well. And the reason I'm talking about him, right, is because when you do top 5 picks, you still want to pick the obvious ones as well, because people have a knack of overthinking things and making up reasons why Salah maybe shouldn't be in our teams. But I think if I was making a wildcard this week, like if I still had it, he'd probably be the first name on the team sheet. Even if you didn't fancy captaining him in game week 19 for the double, Man United at home and Burnley at home, I think sometimes you have to just kind of realise or play to the fact that there's lots of other FPL managers, and a lot of them are going to captain him. If you don't at least own him, it could be massive. We've seen the effective ownership for him is over 170% for most people this week. I would say in the double game week, it's going to be quite close as well. So playing against other people, a lot of them are going to have Salah. It'd be pretty difficult to manage the next few weeks without him. Now, his underlying stats are not actually that great recently, right, compared to what we've seen before in terms of the amount of shots, his XG and stuff like that. His last 4 matches, his XG is 0.95. I think he's got 5 goals in that time. Obviously, I'm not including the West Brom match in this because I'm recording it before it's been played. But that's pretty crazy. But it's what Salah does, right? He has shots, he scores, he's a great finisher, he gets plenty of chances usually as well. And I don't think I'd start writing him off just because his numbers haven't looked good enough, because I don't think he's blank for about 7 weeks now. And once he starts getting more and more chances as the season goes on, then the points are just going to keep on rolling in as well. And even before the double game week, it's Newcastle away, Southampton away. I think Newcastle away in particular could be a really good captaincy opportunity. I think a few weeks ago we were looking at this week as well. I have to have Son, I have to have Kane for Fulham at home, and they are good captain options, but arguably Salah's even better. And the Southampton away is not a bad fixture either. So the fixtures before, right now, and the fixtures in the double game week are quite good. I think the Man United and Burnley game could go either way. They're both teams that can defend well on their day, but Burnley in particular, we've already seen concede 5 to Man City, and if Liverpool get that early goal, it could be another 4 or 5 goals for them as well, considering how good they've been in attack. So Mo Salah, definitely the first name on the team sheet, and there has to be another Liverpool player too. And that other player is Andy Robertson in this case, although really it's just one of the Liverpool fullbacks, whether it's Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold. You could make an argument to have 2, although I think the sacrifices you'd have to make elsewhere in your team would make it quite difficult to have both of them, but a lot of people are going to do that. So at the moment, that actually looks like quite a bit of a differential to have both rather than just having one. But for me, I'd have at least one. I've picked Robertson. It could be Trent Alexander-Arnold. We'll come on to that a little bit later on. I think although Man City have probably looked the strongest defensively so far, Liverpool aren't really that far behind, and they never really are. Even without Van Dijk or Gomez, they've looked really good. Fabinho and Matip have formed a good partnership, and even when I think it's Reece Williams and Nat Phillips have had to come in, they've both looked pretty good as well. And Klopp has basically built a system where the players come into the system rather than the system changing for the players. So it's always been pretty good. And obviously, like Salah, Newcastle away, Southampton away looks pretty good, especially if Southampton don't have Danny Ings. I don't know if he's going to be back for that game, but if he's not, it's going to be a good one for Liverpool. And in the double, arguably, I think the fixtures, Man United at home and Burnley at home, you could even argue that it lends itself to better for the defenders than the attackers, because Burnley at home, okay, they did get battered by Man City, and the big teams do have a good chance against them, especially if they can get that early goal. But they are a team that can defend when they want to. They made it really frustrating for Spurs, for example, though obviously Liverpool are a better attacking team than Spurs are this season. And then Man United at home is an interesting one, because against Arsenal, Chelsea, and Man City, they've only conceded 1 goal. Well, on the flip side, they've just played Leicester and Sheffield United and conceded 4 goals. So again, Liverpool will probably score against Man United. Whether or not it's a big score is a different matter. But from a defensive point of view, Man United are going to find it hard to break Liverpool down and to get goals in that game. And then Burnley at home is a really good game for defensive fixtures. So I would definitely want Salah anyway, but I'm just saying that I think the fixtures from a defensive point of view are arguably as good, if not slightly better. So for me, it's between obviously Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. I do think Robertson stepped up quite a bit this year, whereas Trent's looking a little bit worse just about than last year, but Trent's obviously had a bit of an injury. And the more he plays, the better he's going to get. The thing for Robertson is he's nicked a few set pieces off Trent, whereas Trent kind of monopolised them last year. It's not really happening now, which is why I kind of like Robertson. He gets further forward, or as you can see, not had any shots in the box over the last 4 matches. But the way he gets forward and how close he gets to goal in the final third, he is my preference right now. But if money's tight, Trent is cheaper, and I don't really see a big issue if you went with him instead of Robertson. So if Salah is the first name on the team sheet, I'm pretty sure for most people, Fernandes is going to be the second. I got to be honest, I thought his price tag at the start of the season was a little bit high. I knew he'd done really well for Man United, and obviously he's a great player, but sometimes a great player doesn't always translate into as good an FPL option when their price is too high, but actually his price looks too low right now, and it's actually players like Kevin De Bruyne where you think, well, I don't really want to pay that much for him. Before the double game, which is not quite as good as Liverpool probably. Wolves at home, although Wolves are a team in transition who have kind of changed their defenders around a little bit. They've changed the formation a little bit as well. So it's not the worst time to be playing Wolves, but they're always going to make things difficult for you. And then it's Villa at home, which again is an interesting one because I can see Man United getting goals in that. But also defensively, Villa have been very good this season. And basically since post-lockdown, they've been decent. So they're not as good fixtures as Liverpool, but they're still not bad. And obviously Bruno Fernandes can get points in any game. We've just seen him get a goal and assist against Leicester. And so I think these 2 fixtures are fine. And in the double game week, Liverpool away is probably almost as difficult, if not slightly worse than Liverpool obviously playing Man United. But then it's Fulham away. And they are a team that have looked better. They don't look like a team that are necessarily going to get battered by a lot of other teams. Like Liverpool were restricted to a 1-1 draw. But I just wonder how much that took out of Fulham. Like how much did they have to put into that match to keep Liverpool down to only scoring 1 goal? And I think it's a good one for Man United and Bruno Fernandes in particular. I'm not really worried about what players' records are in like away games versus home games, but if it's something that interests you, we all know that Bruno Fernandes has only blanked once away from home since game week 25 last season when he joined Man United. So having Liverpool away and Fulham away could spell good news if that's something that you focus on when you make your decisions. But I do think it's good fixtures for the double, and the fixtures afterwards aren't bad for Man United as well. And look, I hate the term season keeper because no player's a season keeper, but a lot of people will be looking at Fernandes as one. And 7 shots in the box, slightly higher XG than Salah over the last 4, 9 chances created as well. He's looking really good, and I do think the more difficult games where Fred and McTominay play, it's actually quite good for Fernandes because sometimes when Pogba plays, if Pogba drifts forward, then Fernandes is kind of fine coming back a bit because he thinks, well, Pogba's there so he can handle it. But when it's Fred and McTominay, Fernandes has to be the one getting forward. It didn't really matter too much against Leicester because when Pogba came on, I think that's when Fernandes got his goals. So it's not like he can't get attacking points, but when Fred and McTominay play, which they will do quite a bit, is really, really good for Fernandes. So he looks like a great option, good fixtures coming up, good, decent double, and good fixtures afterwards. He hasn't stopped scoring points all season. Probably the second name on the team sheet. Okay, so some slightly cheaper picks now. So Sofao is first up. I think it's 4.7 million. At the time of recording, they haven't yet played Brighton. West Ham this is, of course. But the previous 5 games, they've actually not kept a clean sheet, which is surprising because if you look at the way people talk about West Ham, you'd put them down as a really, really good defensive side, and perhaps they should have kept more clean sheets, but they have had some difficult fixtures, which we'll come on to in a minute. The fixtures before the double are Southampton away and Everton away, so you could argue they're not great. I mean, Calvert-Lewin for Everton, will they have James Rodriguez back? Will the likes of Luca Dean, Richarlison be in the team? Like, Luca Dean's looking unlikely, but if Richarlison was back and James Rodriguez is back, that would be a tough game for West Ham, and Southampton is always tough for any team. So the fixtures beforehand are debatable about how good they are, but because of his price, you can potentially have him in kind of a squad rotation where you don't have to play him in game week 16 or 17. And again, it's going to depend on what chips you're using, but a lot of people are looking to wildcard and bench boost in 19. So I would definitely have Sofao for Burnley at home and West Brom at home. It doesn't really get too much better than that in the double game week. And so far, so Soufal, I've got it written down here, has played 11 games so far. He's had 8 bonus points already. And in that time, he's played Man United, Leeds, Chelsea and Villa. So that's in the previous 5 games. So where they've not kept a clean sheet, they've played Leeds, Chelsea, Villa and Man United. 4 of the best attacking teams so far this season in terms of expected goals. And as well as those teams, in the 11 that he's played, he's also played Spurs, Man City and Liverpool. So to get 8 bonus points in 11 games when the fixtures have been that difficult is decent. And I do think as the fixtures turn, Southampton and Everton not as difficult as the ones I've just spoken about, and Burnley and West Brom in the double are also extremely good, and the fixtures after the double are good, so you could hold on to him. There's more clean sheets to come and bonus points to come in that as well. So looking at the kind of other West Ham defenders you could go for, no West Ham defender since Soufal's been in the team has created more chances. He's created 18 chances in 11 games. That's 1 more than Cresswell. He's also had 2 shots in the box. It's worth noting that in the same time, Balbuena's had 7 shots in the box, and he is a threat from set pieces. And he's cheaper at 4.4 million. But if I could only pick one, I think it would be Soufal. He looks like a great option this week. If there's one player at the start of the season I got wrong, it's Patrick Bamford. I did not expect him to do what he's done so far, and it doesn't look like letting up either. Both he and Leeds have been great in attack. And from an FPL point of view, right, we don't really care that sometimes they get battered, like conceding 4 to Liverpool, 6 to Man United, etc., because they're always on the attack. When you're buying their attackers, that's what you want. A team that's creating lots of chances. And to put it into perspective about how good they've been, their XG per match so far is 1.71. And Liverpool are 1.95. They're top. So Leeds are quite close to Liverpool in that regard. And they're one of the best teams so far in the league. That might change a little bit after game week 15, but not by much. Not to suddenly make them one of the worst teams or anything like that. So Leeds looking really good. I do think there's other options other than Bamford if you want to save a bit of money. Rodrigo's cheaper at 5.7. Rafinha's only 5.4 in midfield. And interestingly, Rafinha in particular has had 11 shots in the box in the last 4 matches, same as Bamford. He's also created 12 chances and is on set pieces as well. So the double up is an option, I think, because they're such good value. With good fixtures beforehand, you're bringing them in for West Brom, good fixture. Spurs a little bit tougher, but then the double game week is Brighton and Southampton at home, which both look good. Now, I know some people get frustrated with Bamford for the amount of chances that he misses, but for me, I'd be more happy with my striker getting into the right positions and getting those chances and eventually them coming off. And he's got so many returns so far this season that I don't really see what people are worried about. The features are good. Even at 6.4 million, he's still a great price. He would 100% be on my wild card without injury or anything like that. And I'd possibly even look at the double up because Leeds' attack is just that good. So that's my top 5 wildcard picks who I would have. That's me, just my opinion, if I was wildcarding this week. Let me know who your top 5 were. Do you disagree with any of the ones that I've talked about? Obviously, Salah and Fernandes in particular, I'm sure, on most people's wildcards. I'm not sure about the rest, though. So let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like. Hit subscribe if you're new around here. And we're back tomorrow with a team selection video ahead of the deadline. And then obviously we'll have our normal content before game week 17 as well. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Give it a like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you again soon.